Hello again. I'm a great believer in democracy, but it has its limitations. As long as most of those involved in politics care about their country and have at least some slight degree of idealism and altruism, then the democratic process is able to scrape along somehow. The problem is, though, that today there are very few idealistic men and women sitting in the House of Commons. Almost all of them seem to be concerned only with their own self-interest and what they can get out of the business. They are there for selfish reasons rather than because they hope to improve the lot of ordinary people or do something good for their country. This is the worst parliament which I can remember, and looking back over the last few years we can see that the rot really set in 25 years ago. This is the weak point of democracy. That it allows smooth and plausible characters like Tony Blair to oil his way into office. This is a man who cared nothing at all for his country as far as I can see, and was interested only in power and prestige. His successors have not been much better. Indeed, they seem to have gone from bad to worse, culminating this year in Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak. I suspect that both these people were interested in becoming Prime Minister for reasons of personal vanity and not because they thought that they could benefit their country. This is not, of course, the first time that we've had a parliament full of useless, vain, crooked and corrupt people. There was just such a parliament in 1653, which we now know as the Rump Parliament. Its members cared only for self-interest and were more concerned in maintaining their own power than they were in mending the country after the end of the English Civil War. On April the 20th, 1653, Oliver Cromwell turned up at the House of Commons with a detachment of soldiers. He declared that the members there were no more capable of running the country than they were of running a brothel. After describing various MPs by name as jugglers, tricksters, drunkards and whoremasters, he ordered the troops to clear the house. This scene is shown in the thumbnail for this video. He then ran the country by himself as a dictator. The problem we have when we hear of dictatorships is that we tend to think of people like Hitler and Mussolini, who were very bad men. We forget those countries like Portugal, which flourished under a dictatorship which lasted almost 50 years, first under Salazar and then under Dr. Catano. Spain too did pretty well under the dictatorship of Franco. Not all dictators are wicked brutes. Cromwell certainly wasn't. I think that we in this country need a strong leader now, not just somebody to lead this country, but also perhaps to rally Europe against the threat which it faces. There have been previous occasions when Europe was in danger of being conquered by invaders from the east. One thinks of the Battle of Poitiers in 732, for instance, when the Arab armies crossed the Pyrenees and swept into France. On that occasion, they were driven back. Then in 1241, the Mongols reached Austria before they too were driven back. In 1683, the Muslim armies of the Ottoman Empire reached the very gates of Vienna before they were defeated. Europe now faces an existential threat of similar gravity, but the individual nations are not united and all have a different response. If we in Britain had a strong leader who did not need to worry about currying favour with the electorate, this country could perhaps act to rally Europe and confront the gravest threat to the continent since that decisive battle outside Vienna in 1683.